Hi, I'm Ken Mingus. Welcome back to Mingus on Tech. This is our special WWDC reaction edition. I've got Keith and Scott here with me. And for the first time, we're trying a Facebook Live video. So if you're looking at us on Facebook, please weigh in with some questions or comments. We'd be very curious to hear what you think.
Nice ones.
So nice, well, generally nice ones. So, all right, WWDC 2016 is in the record books, as it were. And it seems very clear, at least it seemed clear to me, that Apple was really trying to reach out to developers this time around. I mean, it's the sort of thing, we didn't get any new hardware, no laptops, I'm going to have to wait, I put the credit card away. But it was interesting, we were talking a little earlier about the sort of the overarching kinds of things to look for. And I was very impressed by the fact that Apple's kind of opening up a bit the walled garden for developers by letting developers do more with messages and maps, and especially, I think, Siri. So I was really interested. So any thoughts along those lines? I mean, did that jump out at you too?
It did definitely jump out that they were interested in really showing developer effects. And almost like, here's all of our new features, and then for each OS, then they actually had a part where they said, and here's the dev part.
Right.
And then they went through, and a lot of those was opening up the, through APIs or kits or whatever, was opening up the ability for third-party apps. I think they recognize what some of their competitors are doing in terms of allowing that openness for those different apps.
And it's going to mean power for us down the road, the user, as they develop more and more connections between different parts of the OS and their applications. That's going to bring some good stuff for us maybe by next year.
Well, given the fact that Apple for so long has sort of had this reputation of, building it inside. We build it, we build the best, and making it difficult for developers to sort of expand and build on what Apple's been doing. For the first time, well, not the first time, but I mean, Apple really seems to be taking seriously the need to bring developers in, because Apple cannot do all of this alone. It's got too many irons in the fire now between, what is it, the newly renamed Mac OS Sierra, tvOS, watchOS, and iOS 10. And if they're going to really get the most from those operating systems in each of those device lines, they're going to need outside help from the third-party developers.
Right. I think that they've probably received criticism in the past for apps that they've developed on their own, and you saw, like with Maps, for example, a few years ago, and
which was a bit of a nightmare.
It was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Or even Apple Music last year. I mean, I think a lot of people were like a little criticism. They were critical of.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
of,
yes.
Of Apple Music.
Let me weigh in there. In fact,
go ahead.
I have a caveat. A year ago, Keith and I we did the same thing after WWDC 2015. And I ranted and raved about Apple Music and how I didn't think it was necessary. I've got Spotify, I've got Pandora, and I am now a daily Apple Music user because it's been integrated with CarPlay, and I have a car with CarPlay. And so, it was interesting to see that they're obviously building on Apple Music this year, but I have to eat some words. I'm eating my words. I am now an Apple Music fan.
Would you have adopted that Apple Music if you hadn't gotten the car? Or
no.
So
it's really the fact that I'm in the car every day for about an hour, and being able to fire up Apple Music with it integrated in the car with CarPlay makes it much easier for me to explore music in ways that I never did before.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is everything we say may be wrong. We'll be back in a year and let you know.
I'm surprised that you can remember what we
He's
talked about a year ago.
selling his car. He's not going to have CarPlay.
Exactly. But then who knows what will happen. It was interesting. One of the things that they talked about was the ability to, I think this was CarPlay, where you might be able to put like maps and information in your display in your new car, assuming you've got an LCD screen, behind the steering wheel. It's interesting that some of the things they're talking about now, most people won't see for a while.
Okay, right, because they're not going to buy a car.
No, they're not going to.
That wouldn't have been Apple 3 or 4 years ago. They would have been focused more on what they can sell you soon. Yeah, or right now.
Yeah.
This was a long distance kind of event. It wasn't a short distance one. Yes, we'll see the new OSs in the fall, but they're building for the future, and in ways that we don't usually see them talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I guess we should note that Apple will be doing the public beta program again for both Mac OS Sierra, which it used to be OS 10, but now it's Mac OS, and iOS 10 for the iPhone and iPad and iPod. So they're going to have the public weighing in, the public users, if you want to be beta testers, in addition to the developers, and then both the final products will be out this fall for free, just to get that off the record books. So it was a 2-hour speech keynote with a lot of Apple executives up there. Anything in particular jumps out at you, Keith, that
I think
you want to talk about?
Well, I think it went faster than we've normally
Yeah,
seen.
the
or
pace did seem to be
It did have a
faster.
good pace to it. There were only a couple moments where some things were awkward, like the woman that tried to get everybody to start clapping to the song. That was a
that's
little
not
awkward.
that's not a crowd that's going to
Yeah.
be getting into the groove.
Yeah.
I
It's
thought it
just
was
not.
funny because it was. I think she was almost purposely awkward. Come on, rock.
Come on, yeah, or else.
But I did like the diversity of the people that were up on stage. I thought that was a nice touch. But from an app perspective, I'm really excited about the Swift Playgrounds app, which was the last thing they showed. Tim Cook came out and was really
For young coders, learning how to code.
It felt like he was passionate about this idea of getting people to, getting kids to learn how to code, but not just kids. I mean, regular people who've never coded before.
I know. I might even
and
try
again,
my hand at
my
it.
son's about to turn 9, and he's been dabbling in the Scratch MIT site where it uses blocks and really teaches them how to kind of like think logically, and he does stuff on there that's just really cool. He's actually learning how to almost animate through that kind of process, and I don't mind when he goes on the computer now to do that, as long as because I feel like he's actually learning something rather than just sitting there watching a Netflix show or something like that. So it'll be interesting because again, this will be free at the end of the in the fall. It'll be interesting to see if I can hand him an iPad and say, go at it, like just see if you can actually start learning the language behind.
It's interesting because that goes back to the whole point, that today's event really is focused on developers, and it's obviously not just developers now, but potential developers down the road. I mean, that was the one point Tim Cook made at the end, was that they really want to make sure that this is available. They think all schools should be teaching coding now,
Right.
which when you think about the 21st century is a good idea.
So I think we should just tell people who are just tuning in now to Facebook Live that we're talking about WWDC, Apple's developer conference,
Yep.
and just discussing everything that they announced.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for letting
You
people
want to turn
in.
the camera on and just show yourself? No? Okay.
That's, speaking off camera, that's Rebecca
That's the
Linke,
awesome
our
Rebecca Linke.
social media editor, who is here helping us out today. It's also interesting in terms of the getting beyond the developers. One of the themes that seemed to come through to me was that Apple seems to be paying attention to how people use their devices. A lot of the tweaks and the things that they're changing for iOS 10, the new watchOS, clearly seem to be designed to make it easier to use the device the way you use it. I think we were talking earlier about the Raise to Wake
Yeah, it's one of
feature
my
in the phone.
favorite features because notifications just goes by so quickly when you pick up your phone, and this allows them to stop and hold in place just when you raise your phone.
And you
It's
said
just-
notifications is exactly what you want to see when you pick up the phone.
That's pretty much 90%. That or answering the phone is pretty much 90%.
Yeah, especially if you get a beep for a notification, and if the
Yeah.
phone is locked, by the time you open it, and I have the problem where I push the button and then Siri shows up, but that's a
I do that
I
too.
turned Siri off so that wouldn't happen.
Okay.
But you're right, the notification goes away, so that should be an interesting feature.
And I love the authentication with. I mean, I may start wearing my watch again.
I noticed you haven't had the watch on lately.
And because the complications don't work that well,
Yeah.
but the fact that I could authenticate my Mac that way is a very powerful little feature.
Yeah, I like that, and I also I do wear my Apple Watch every day, and despite the issues it has, a lot of the things that Apple showcased today, the faster launching for apps, they rethought how you use the watch and the navigation,
With
etc.
the dock.
Yeah, exactly.
the
Being able
apps.
to change how you use it, it makes more sense, and so I'm really interested in checking that out. And again, it seems to be that in the old days, Apple said this is the way you will do something, and you will learn how to do it because we think it's the smartest way to do it. Now they're obviously making some changes based on feedback, complaints, whatever, and that's welcome. I like seeing
Very
that.
welcome.
We have a question
Yeah.
about the redesigned lock screen in iOS 10.
Yeah, actually, that's very interesting because that's one of the big things that was highlighted today. I think if you swipe right, you get the camera. It makes for easy, quick access to the camera. And if you swipe left, you get some notifications and some of your apps that you frequently use that you can then access.
Swipe up, you
Widgets,
get the
yeah.
widgets.
Widgets, that's it.
yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Swipe up, you get the control center.
Yep. Which is also getting some tweaks and redesigns.
Yeah, swipe to the right from control center, and you get music.
Is it music? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember which way
You
it
get
went.
what's playing now.
Okay.
Now I did have a concern or a question about that. Was does that bypass the lock screen from a security angle. So we're required to have a passcode or Touch ID in order to get into the phone because I've got my enterprise email on there.
Right.
So does that mean when you're putting some of those widgets on there that someone who grabs the phone or takes it from, say I steal your phone, normally I can't see any data on that, but what if I could now just kind of swipe? Would I be able to see some potential information about you? Now, again, maybe that's not, maybe it's just a ball game score, and the fact is like, oh, well, he likes the Red Sox, or because
Well, I think that's a legitimate concern, especially for if you're using your iPhone in the enterprise. I'm going to assume, and we'll wait to see more information, but I'm going to assume that things like that should normally be locked down, you wouldn't be able to put them,
Right,
make them
right.
I think
Like
they're
you-
going to defeat these features in the enterprise.
right. They'll turn
Did-
that off.
did
So I shouldn't
we-
put that little
Did
little
we
notepad
get
thing with my password.
Did we answer his or her question? Okay.
Great.
Just jump in if we've got any other
Oh
questions.
yeah, absolutely. Please feel free. Something else I was interested to see was that you had talked earlier about Maps and how when it first rolled out, it was, if not a disaster, it was certainly an embarrassment, and how they've added more features to it in terms of navigation and being able to show you real-time traffic. That's something, once again, through CarPlay that I use day to day coming into work. And it's obvious that they're trying to keep up with Google Maps, which is considered the gold standard, I
Are
would
they
say,
keeping
still.
up? Because I'm thinking about switching
To Google Maps?
to Apple.
I think with these kinds of changes, they at least bring themselves close to parity. I still think probably Google Maps, because they had a head start, is better for most people. But a lot of the features that Apple has added over the years, like public transit, walking times, things like that, they are obviously trying to make it better.
See, I'm a Waze guy, so now Waze is owned by Google.
Yeah.
But I haven't switched over. And again, I've got the little king icon because I use it so much.
Because you're the king.
Because
in the
you
car?
get you
You
get to
get a
be like
king
you get like a
after a
little
while.
icon that gives you a little crown if you use it long
It's the
enough.
only way
and
you're ever going to get a crown.
it's the only gamification stuff that I've actually succeeded at. But then also I hate to admit this, but I can see where the speed traps are coming up.
It shows
So,
you.
or,
Okay, well that
you know,
is not in Apple
Not that I
Maps.
speed.
That I would like to see.
Not that I speed, but it's still you get that.
But in case you ever had to.
Of course you speed.
No, I don't. I'm a safe driver.
Yeah.
But that's what I
Speed
like.
to be a safe
Again, that's
driver. It's
that-
not either or.
I like the crowd-sourced aspect of that in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah,
Waze.
that's
Now,
the best part of it.
Yeah, I've never been able to defeat Waze, so to speak, in terms of thinking that I have a shortcut that is faster.
Right.
Like every time I do it, it just makes my trip longer, and so they know how long it's going to take, and if they suggest taking that exit, it's going to work more than if I'll just sit in traffic.
That
for
was
a while.
exactly one of the things that showed up in the Maps app that they highlighted for iOS 10 was that if you've got traffic in front of you, it will give you alternate routes. Now that's something that lots of other apps have
Yeah.
done. My GPS does that in the car, but I'm glad to see it built in. It'll keep me from having to switch back and forth between CarPlay and my
Right,
Apple
right.
Maps and the built-in GPS
It feels
in
like
the
it makes
car.
more sense for you since CarPlay is in your car.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Well, and again, that just highlights there were a lot of different things in iOS 10. It's interesting. I think they spent more time on iOS 10 than they did on Mac OS.
Biggest iOS release ever.
Yeah.
That's one of the big talking points. I mean, it's a huge release.
Yeah. It's almost, we were
It is.
talking earlier that it's like, we've got these individual points of light here, and it's hard to get the whole picture because there's so many little things.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of big features. It's a lot of little features put together. It's a pretty heavy remake of the OS.
And one thing, I think we should probably bring up, the big change for Mac OS is the arrival of Siri. So now you can ask Siri questions and not get an answer on your desktop, just like you do with an iPhone. No, I'm kidding. I'm
We
assuming,
No, there's some truth in that.
I'm
Ken.
assuming that the execution will be better than it is. If you're doing the basic, what's the weather today, Siri's pretty good.
They said it would be better.
But if you're asking for contextual information, it gets a little flaky at times.
I do think that using it on the desktop may be helpful for, hey, Siri, find that Word document I was working on last week. And that's a little bit better than when I'm trying to find a document on my Mac. I don't know what to type sometimes.
That's the example he used pretty close, and,
yeah.
and I thought it was a powerful example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
If it
almost
works,
like
assuming it works.
rather than, hey, Siri, what's the ball game score right now? Or, some of the things that Google does about its search algorithm is great.
Right.
This one is more like, Siri, do something for me. And that's what's great on the phone
And
too.
you can
I
just
can
set an
alarm
I can set
or-
an alarm. I just say set an alarm for 6:45. Boom, it's done. rather than trying to go into the little clock app and then finding which of my alarms
Right.
it needs to do. Simple kind of command structure.
And then
commands
you
work
could
well.
save those as if they were
Almost like a
Save your results, right?
save the search or the command.
So you could come back to it again.
Yeah.
Basically reuse it.
And
or
reuse it over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you would reinitiate it.
I think sometimes they try to get too cute with Siri. They did that on stage where it's like, hey Siri, how's it going? Hey, I'm styling.
Yeah.
Or but even in general, you see these stories or these tweets where like, hey, ask Siri this question.
Right.
Or and
I've
and
looked
look how
on the
cute
web
that
and
is.
found this for you to look up in a browser. No, that's not the UI I
I think
want.
my kids have the best time when they change Siris to tell it's like call me Joe or call
I have
that
Siri
kind
as
of
an
thing.
Australian guy.
Yeah,
I don't
there you
know
go.
the different voices you can use.
I think I
so-
changed mine to a British guy. Just
Just to
from
be
the-
different.
from the default. Yeah.
And then, okay, one thing before we wrap up, the other thing that I thought was interesting was the expanded use of continuity between devices, and that's where you start a document on one device, you can go back, like if you're on an iPhone and you start to write something, you can then start working on it on a desktop. Now they've got copy paste, so if you copy something on your iPhone and you want to insert it in a document on your desktop, when you click on paste, it should theoretically be there. Those kinds of things that make it easier to sort of glide between devices, as long as they're all Apple devices, if they work, could come in really handy, and it's gonna vary
They
from person to
mentioned
person.
the linking up of their hardware several times during this event. They didn't go into a lot of detail about what they were,
Right.
what that was going to bring to us, but the idea is a good one. I mean, continuity was the first step. Some of us don't find it to work as well as others, but it doesn't matter. It's a great idea. If they can make it work, it's pretty powerful.
I find that I use it occasionally, and the times that I've used it, it's worked pretty well. It works better than Siri anyway. Okay, so think about this 1 second. What's the one thing that jumped out at you that you really like? I'll start because one of the things that I was happy to see was that they're revamping the remote app for your phone. It allows you to do a lot more with the Apple TV. I use Apple TV fairly regularly at home, and having that with the ability to sort of do more by finding movies and entering text and things like that, that's my pick for the most useful to me for the moment for today. Keith?
Oh, most useful? Probably the Swift Playgrounds, but I wanted to mention one other thing that I'm. Well, single sign. You can mention single sign-on because I think all three of us were happy about that
Right.
for the TV
Yes.
part.
Yeah.
I would love that to go across all of my other devices, like my other TV devices, like
Right.
Roku. If you're listening, single sign-on, please.
Okay.
But the one thing that I thought would bring me into I would be a little hipper.
Yeah.
Is that even a word? That's probably not even a word.
How could you be more
I
hip?
would
It's a
be
word.
more
More
hip.
hip.
Yeah.
Is the emoji thing with the iMessage where it predicts or it helps you pick
You can
the
tap
right
and it changes
emojis?
words to emojis, right?
Yeah.
We might actually
Emojification, they
use
call it.
emojis if
I
that
might
were
actually
the
start
case.
using more emoji.
Yeah.
When I try to send something with an emoji to a friend of mine, they're like, "What the hell did you just do?" But I like being
Well,
able
you have to
tap.
spend so much time finding the right emoji.
Right.
There are like
It's
billions
that
of
word.
So
them.
I
the
like
time.
typing the message out and then hitting a button, and then it says, "If you want, now pick 5 words,"
Yeah.
and it becomes a message and an
Emojification.
emoji. I have no idea, but maybe with my kids
It's
now,
people,
I
it's
could
for
actually
people
talk
who
to
are
them.
emoji challenged.
And I
like,
do have a few friends that are very emoji centric. They're going to love this.
Right.
Okay,
Either
so-
way,
So
yeah. it's gonna
I
be
liked that. I
success.
thought that was kind of cute. And then the voicemail transcription,
Yep.
or the spam thing for some of the voicemail spam on phone calls. If you don't, sometimes you get a phone call coming in and you see an address, and you're like, oh, that might be someone I might need to talk to, and then I hit answer, and it's like, you've won a free vacation. I'm like, oh, no.
See, and it was someone you needed to talk to.
No, it wasn't, because it
No,
was
okay.
it was a
All right,
spam
well,
thing.
all right.
We haven't talked too much about Mac OS, but I think my favorite little pet feature is the fact that they're tabifying everything.
Right.
Every app is going to have tabs. The operating system obviously does, and I think that's powerful. It's something that people can use, and app developers can use.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As we talk about these things, it comes back to the point that there are lots of little things built in through all of these operating systems, either desktop or iOS 10 or the watch or the TV, and different people are going to find different favorite parts. It's not like one, other than maybe Siri on the desktop, there's not one sort of aha thing that's going to change the way everybody works. But before we go, any last questions from Facebook?
Not
We-
specifically
we've-
about WWDC.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we'll take that as
Then
a
let's
no.
not ask them.
We'll
yeah.
take that as a no. All right. So, Scott, Keith, thanks for the quick reaction.
Sure.
For now, that's a wrap.